Welcome back to the Prompt Circle, where we discuss the latest capabilities in AI models and how they can be applied to everyday tasks. In today's video, we'll be showing you how to build an article writing Slack bot. Let's see the bot in action before we build the bot out. We use a slash command named generate blog article, followed by the description of an article you would like the bot to write. The bot, after this message has been sent, will send a confirmation that is now writing the article, and once the article is ready, it sends us a message. So now we received the blog article. It contains a title, as you can see. It also contains an outline, as well as some suggested tags, as well as a suggested social media copy post. Then an introduction, as well as the body of the article, which also includes a conclusion. To get started on our app, we have a few things to do. First, we need to create a Slack app and also get some of our Slack API credentials. We need to set up OpenAI to get our OpenAI tokens. We also need to create a Node.js app that's going to do the following: initialize a Slack app using the Slack build framework, create a function that makes an API request to OpenAI to generate an article, as well as handle the slash command. So we start by going to api.slack.com/apps, click on the create new app button and give your app a name, and then select a workspace to develop your app in. Now please note, you need to be logged into Slack for you to select your workspace, so select the workspace that actually applies. Once you're done, click on create app, and now your app is created. Next up, we need to add some scopes for our bot. To do this, we need to go over to auth and permissions. Under scopes, we choose a bot token scope. For this app, we'll be using the chat write scope, which allows our chatbot to send messages. Then we could go ahead and install our app into the workspace. It takes us to a prompt screen where we click allow to allow the app to now have access to Slack. Now you can also see that a bot user auth token has been generated. This token is going to be important later, so copy and keep in a safe location. Next up, we'll go to the basic information section where we're going to be generating an app level token. So under the app level token section, click on generate token and scope. Here we're going to be generating a scope called connections write. Now this scope is going to allow us to use WebSockets, so we will be building our app in socket mode. So this allows you to build even if you are behind a firewall or using any VPN. Now we go to socket mode, and in the socket mode section, we can go ahead and activate socket mode. Now this will ensure that we are opening WebSockets whenever we use our app. We can also go into the event subscriptions area and enable events. Events are going to be sent through this WebSocket. All right, now we have our token set up. Next, we need to go create our slash command. So we'll go to the slash command section, click on create command, then we'll give it a name. Slash generate blog article is the name that we're going with. Now we can also add a short description like generate an article or generate a blog article, and also a usage hint. Our usage hint is just going to indicate that after the slash command, we want an article description that we're going to be using as a prompt to generate this blog article from OpenAI. Once we're done, we hit on save. And now, once we are done creating the slash command, we'll need to reinstall the app, and we go through that link, and now the app is ready for use. On the OpenAI website, click on API, and that will take you to the API page. Now you can sign up for an OpenAI account if you don't have one, or if you have one, you can go ahead and sign in. Now I'm going to be signing in using Google. You can also do the same thing, so I can just hit continue with Google since I already have an account. Go to the top left corner of your screen, click on your View API keys. That should take you to your API keys page where you can create a new secret key. Click on Create New Secret Key to create an API key and copy and keep that in a safe location because we'll be using it in the app. Now head over to documentation where you can get some documentation about OpenAI, including a quick start, which could be a good place for you to learn how to create an OpenAI application, either in Node or in Python. Okay, so before we actually jump into the code, there are a few things that we need to get set up. You can pause here, complete these steps, and come back to the video. Essentially, you need to create a directory for the app, check and make sure that you have Node running on your system, run npm init to initialize your Node app, and then create these environmental variables by exporting them into your app, just like this, right in the terminal. Once you're done with that, then you can come back and we can continue. So for this app, we will be installing two main packages. The Slack Bolt package, which we're going to be using to work with the Slack app, and the OpenAI package, which essentially is going to allow us to interact with the OpenAI API. Then we go ahead and create a new file called app.js where we'll be writing our code. So let's jump into the code. First, we want to actually go ahead and import the app class from our Slack Bolt package. We also want to import OpenAI as well as the configuration class inside that particular package as well. All right, so next up, we'll go ahead and configure OpenAI. To do that, we'll use the configuration class where we'll be passing the API token. Once we're done with that, we can use that configuration to initialize the OpenAI API class, which will give us access to the OpenAI API endpoints. Next up, we initialize the Slack application. First, we pass the token, which is the Slackbot token that we generated earlier. We also pass the sign-in secret, and then we set socket mode to true and also set the app token. We also have to set a port, which is mandatory, but it's not necessarily used in the app. All right, next up, we want to start our app and also console log the fact that both app is running. Now, once we're done with that, we want to go ahead and actually run our app. You can run your app using Node app.js or nodemon app.js, and you can see our app is currently running. Now, we're going to set up just a very simple slash command just to make sure that our app is working. Here, we're just going to do app.command, which is basically the command handler function that you can write in Slack. And using that, we're going to be trying out a simple command which simply echoes a text that we send it. All right, so let's go back to our Slack workspace where we have actually installed the app. Now, we'll be needing the channel to test our slash command out. So we're going to create a new channel. This is just going to be a test channel. This is also the channel where we're going to be testing our newly generated articles. So once you're done creating a new channel in Slack, the next step would be to add the app to the channel. To do that, you go right on top, click on article generation test in our case, go to integrations, click on add the app, select the app you want to add to the channel. Now this means that the app can now send messages right inside this channel. All right, so let's test our current slash command. Now it does nothing too special. It only returns whatever text you add to your slash command. So in this case, we've just added test and it's echoing the word test back to us. All right, So there are a few things that we need to understand about OpenAI. Now, for creating and generating text, we're going to be using the completion endpoint. Now, the completion endpoint essentially provides you with the ability to generate new text. And that is the only API endpoint we're going to be covering in this tutorial. But just know that there are other endpoints that do other things like fine-tuning the API model, adding edits, or doing what is known as embeddings. Well, for today, we're going to be focusing just strictly on the completion endpoint. So first off is the model. So you want to use a model. OpenAI has several models that are good at performing different levels of task. The most powerful one is the DaVinci model. There are models with different capacities and costs there. There's also some trade-offs when it comes to speed and the maximum amount of text or tokens that can be processed. So for example, DaVinci can handle up to 4,000 tokens, while other models may not be able to handle more than a little over 2,000 tokens. So let's talk about prompt. Now, your prompt is essentially the instruction you're passing to GPT to complete a task. In our case, it will be something like write a blog post about this topic. One tip to note here is that for you to get the best results, it's best for you to show and tell. And what I mean is that you need to explain to the model what type of output you expect back. As an example, you're trying to generate an article. It makes sense to provide an example of an article for it to generate. The more descriptive your prompts are, the better results you're likely to get. Next off is your max tokens. Now this is in relation to the number of text you can process, both as prompt and expected output. Now keep in mind, 75 words is roughly 100 tokens. So for an article of about 500 words, you might be requiring up to 650 tokens. Now you can adjust as you go along. So you want to test these things out as much as possible. Another important parameter is the temperature parameter. This helps to determine how creative the model is going to be. And according to OpenAI, higher values means the model will take more risks. So try 0.9 for more creative applications, and 0 when you're looking for something with a well-defined answer. Another key one is N. N determines how many completions the model is going to generate. So if you want 2 article samples, then N should be 2. It's very important to have enough tokens, so keep in mind your max tokens come into play with this one. Now, one of the easiest ways to prototype what your app should look like or understand exactly how prompts work is by using Playground. Now, Playground provides a place for you to experiment. We can also generate your code directly from Playground. For our application, we'll model the prompt we want to see and check out some of the results just to make sure they are in line with what we expect. So first off, let's set our model to text DaVinci 003. Our temperature to 0.9, and our max token should be somewhere around 600 or so. Maybe we'll push it over to 900 actually. We'll also have a stop sequence, and the stop sequence essentially indicates exactly where the generated article should stop. In our case, we want it to stop at a line break. Okay, so now let's copy in our text. So we're going to have a prompt that says write a blog article about the importance of AI in the world today and write it in a witty tone. The output should include the following sections: a title, an outline, an introduction section, the main body section with clear sections that expand on the outline, a tag section, and a suggested social media copy post. So these are all the things that we want our model to return because we want our article to be quite extensive and ready to go. So let's see how it does. Alright, so next up we hit the submit button and that should start to generate our article. So as we can see, it's generating a title, it did generate an outline. Now it's also generating an introduction section, as well as expanding on all the outline sections that we talked about. It's also generated some tags and a suggested social media copy post as well. So as we can see, it's done exactly what we needed to do. So next up, we'll go ahead and copy the code so we can use this in our app. Now to copy the code, click on the View Code button. That will generate a code snippet that you can use, and you can use either Node.js or Python. It also does support curl. Now all we're going to do here is we're going to copy this particular API call and use it inside our app. So now back into our code. First things first, we want to generate a function that is able to use the API code that we generated from the playground. So this function is simply going to be an async function that generates the blog article, taking in one parameter called prompt. So what we're going to do here is that we're going to provide our prompt as text, writing basically the framework of the prompt and allowing our users to provide just the text input of what their blog article is all about. So that is the function that we're going to be using here to make the call out when our / command arrives. All right, so next up is the / command. So how do we handle this? So let's take a deeper look at what's going on here, because this is where the bulk of the action is taking place. So to handle a / command from Slack, we're going to be using the command function. This command method, I should say, takes in the following parameters. The first parameter it takes is the name of the / command that it's listening for, and then it also accepts a callback function. Now this callback function is an asynchronous function which includes the command, which includes all the payload that is there for the command, an ACK function which basically allows you to immediately acknowledge whenever Slack sends your app a particular payload, and then finally client, which allows us to use the Slack client APIs directly inside our app to perform different actions. So first and foremost, we need to do the acknowledgement. So this needs to happen within the first 3 seconds of receiving any event or payload from Slack. You need to respond with an acknowledgement. That's what that acknowledgement is there for. Next up, we want to send back a message to the user indicating that the article is being generated. Now, this message is also going to contain text that comes in from the command. So we're using that command to get exactly the text. So we have the command payload, we're using it to get the text that the user has indicated, so that we can echo that back to them as well to say, this is the article that we're trying to generate. Now, because we're going to be posting this message in somewhere, we need to get the channel ID from the command. So wherever the command was triggered from, we're getting the channel ID from the channel where the command was initiated from. Now, once we receive that information, we use that information immediately to attempt to generate a blog article. So we're calling our earlier function. Now, because we're passing a prompt into that function, which basically is the description of our article, we're using the command.text. Command.text basically is whatever text is added or appended to your / command. All right, now because we're going to be updating the original message we sent, we're going to have to retrieve the message timestamp. The timestamp is stored in a value called TS. So whenever you send a message in Slack, the response from that endpoint includes a value called TS, which is the timestamp. Now, using that timestamp, we can now update our message after we have returned our article. To do that, we're going to use the chat.update endpoint, which essentially takes in the channel where you want to update the message, the timestamp of the message you're trying to update, as well as the text or information that you're trying to update that message with. And that is exactly what we're doing here. Now, once we're done with that, our app is ready to go. So let's go and test it out. All right, so we start by entering our / command in the channel in Slack, and also entering a description of our article. In this case, we're saying the impact of AI on the society. Now, once we do that, you can see that our initial message is generating the blog article, and it's also providing what our input was. Now, once it's done generating the article, you'll see that it will actually update this message with the article. So there we go. Article is generated, and now we can see the entire article that was just generated, including the title, the outline, the tags, the suggested social media copy post, as well as the body of the article itself. Now, there you have it. You can see exactly how you can use OpenAI inside Slack. And please, you can actually refine this to do more things. You can try out other types of prompts and other types of examples. I hope you found this helpful. Thank you once again for joining us, and please subscribe if you enjoyed this particular video.